It's Return of the Rock Week here at Third Rock Radio. We are celebrating the return of the rock sample from asteroid Bennu. It comes back to Earth this Sunday on the 24th. And to help us celebrate, it's Coralie Adam. Coralie, how are you?
I'm great. Couldn't be better. Sample's coming back this week.
I know. How long have you been waiting for this day to come for this weekend?
Since 2011.
Oh my gosh, you've been, because I interviewed Mike Moreau and he said the same thing. They said, "Are you committed?" And he's like, "Sure." How long will this take? Oh, about 10 years.
Yep. I got my job on OSIRIS-Rex right out of undergrad.
Oh, awesome.
And I've been working on it ever since the day it was selected. I was on Easter Island and I got an email from my future boss saying, "Hey, OSIRIS-Rex got selected. It's going to be the next billion-dollar class NASA mission. Will you work for us?" And I've been working on it ever since. It's been quite a journey.
Well, that's great. Now, you're with the company, is it Kinetics Aerospace? And you guys work with NASA, and you are the lead optical navigation engineer at Kinetics. And what exactly has your role been with the OSIRIS-Rex mission, you and Kinetics? What has been y'all's role?
Yeah, so Kinetics does the navigation for the mission. So we are a team of experts in deep space interplanetary navigation, and there's multiple different elements of that. There's the orbit determination, kind of tracking the spacecraft and figuring out where it is in deep space, because we don't have GPS in deep space. So we have radio and we have optical. And so we use the cameras and the telescopes that are on board the spacecraft to take pictures of the background stars of Bennu, and we use those images for navigation. And then as we are determining where the spacecraft is, the team calculates what maneuvers, what burns we have to fire the engines on the spacecraft to get us to where we need to be to do all the amazing science, collect the sample, and bring it back to Earth.
Well, my next question was going to be what has been the biggest challenge for you guys, but I think you just answered it with what exactly y'all are doing. That's amazing, that the work that goes into it.
Yes, navigation is very challenging, and OSIRIS-Rex is a prime example. I would say OSIRIS-Rex is one of the most challenging, if not the most challenging, missions that NASA's ever accomplished from a navigation perspective. Bennu is a very small asteroid. It is, just 500 meters across. So it's the smallest asteroid that's ever been orbited by a spacecraft. That was the first big milestone for us, was getting into orbit. Mm-hmm. And that happened on New Year's Eve, 2018 into 2019, just 6 days before we then started to see the rocks popping off the surface, right as we had gotten into orbit, which was a fun surprise.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Mike Moreau hit on, that there was a lot of curveballs thrown to us by the asteroid Bennu. A lot of things were a little bit unexpected. And you mentioned no GPS, of course, but were you flying blind, so to speak, with navigating the OSIRIS-Rex mission? What I mean by that is that it seems like there was no roadmap. You just kind of had to feel your way to get there. Is that safe to say?
Well, there was a lot of years of planning and analysis
Sure.
and trajectory design, kind of, as the spacecraft was being built, as we were finalizing and, trying to plan what we thought the performance would be, as the design was coming together, we were doing a lot of planning and figuring out kind of what our trajectory was going to look like, but there was a ton of uncertainty. We didn't know exactly how massive Bennu was going to be in terms of its density. We knew about the size that it would be, but the density was unknown, so the gravity was unknown. Mm-hmm. So we could only plan so much until we got there and got those early gravity measurements and figured out, okay, what is the most stable size orbit that we can be in now that we kind of know the mass of the gravitational parameter of Bennu. And so we did a lot of, once we got there, we were flying one mission phase as we were planning the next two mission phases and designing the trajectories for those phases as we were still learning how to navigate around Bennu and estimating all of these forces acting on the spacecraft. They're all very delicate forces, but because Bennu was so small, they were all really important to account for and to kind of bootstrap our way into this really high precision navigation down. We were towards the end, navigating to 2 centimeter precision.
Wow. Talk about on-the-job training. What's today going to bring? We're not sure, but we're going to find out. Now, you began studying asteroids when you were 16 years old. Now, what made you decide to kind of go down this road? What drew your interest to it?
Well, I got really interested in astronomy in high school. It was that first Hubble ultra deep field image right after Hubble got its lens repaired, and then we finally saw the amazing wonders of the deep solar universe, and seeing all these galaxies in one picture just blew my mind. And I thought, I want to contribute some way. I was not thinking about asteroids or the solar system. I was thinking about the universe at that point. And then I did a really awesome summer program through the Adler Planetarium. I grew up in Chicagoland area. And Adler had a program that we used these telescopes in Yerkes Observatory in Williams Bay, Wisconsin. And we imaged asteroids from these telescopes, asteroids that had only recently been discovered. Maybe there were 1 or 2 observations ever of them, so their orbits were really unknown. And so you could look up, okay, in this part of the sky, we expect this asteroid to be there, but there's still uncertainty. It's very similar to what I do now. Looking in the sky, looking for the asteroid to move across the image relative to the background stars. It's called astrometry, and that's what I did when I was 16. That was my first kind of research project in space, and then it came full circle after studying astronomy and aerospace engineering and getting this job that I'm doing almost exactly what I first did when I was 16 years old and I first got interested in this.
So when you say you're imaging an asteroid, does that mean you're trying to figure out exactly where it is in the universe? Is that kind of what that means?
Yeah. We're tracking how it's moving relative to background stars, and then we're trying to back out and estimate what its trajectory is that would make it look like that in our pictures.
Wow.
Make it move like that.
Gotcha. Well, you're obviously what you're doing, because you've received quite a few accolades from your work with NASA, and I hope I get this correctly. You have a main belt asteroid it was dedicated in your name. Is that right?
Yeah. Many people that worked on the OSIRIS-Rex during development received this honor. There was a few asteroids that went around, so everyone has an asteroid named after them. So now we need to send more spacecraft to visit all of the OSIRIS-Rex team's asteroids. Okay,
so your asteroid is asteroid 128314. That's the Coralie Atom asteroid.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Now, when I was dating a girl years ago, she named a star after me. That's not the same thing, though, I wouldn't think. I'm kidding. Mine was bought at the mall. Yours is very, very much more impressive.
I always wanted a star named after me growing up. I was like, that would be so cool. And, nobody ever gave that to me as a gift. I never
Coralie,
did it.
trust me.
And the next thing I knew, I had an asteroid, and I didn't really need a star anymore.
My gift was not very impressive. Yours is awesome. So...
It was quite an honor. It's pretty cool.
Well, once we have the samples back on Earth next weekend, OSIRIS-Rex will become the Osiris Apex mission, and you're going to be involved with that as well. What will be your role with Osiris Apex?
So I actually kind of have 2 roles on Osiris Apex as I foresee, but we'll see how things play out over the next 10 years. But in addition to kind of the optical navigation role, I was also invited to be a member of the science team and a scientific co-investigator on the mission. So searching for as Apophis is flying by Earth and OSIRIS-Rex is flying by Earth on the same day on the other side, and they're going to come together and rendezvous a few weeks later. We're going to be searching for rocks coming off of Apophis from the tidal forces of Earth, and searching for rocks and dust and debris as we approach Apophis, and characterizing its spin state. So Apophis has flown by Earth several times, and it gets torqued every time. So it's not spinning like a top like Bennu is. Mm-hmm. It's kind of tumbling in this almost chaotic rotation. It's called a non-principal axis rotation. And that's going to be one of the biggest challenges of Osiris Apex, is characterizing and modeling that that tumbling spin state so that we could build models of the surface to do better navigation and get closer and eventually get into orbit. So there's, scientific investigation component of that, in addition to a need to figure that out for navigation, and that's really where science and navigation are so closely aligned and overlap often, as you have scientists on the navigation team and navigators on the science team.
That's awesome. Well, this mission's definitely going to be ongoing for quite some time. Now, all this week here on Third Rock, we have asked listeners to submit song suggestions as we are doing all request shows during the week leading up to the sample return, and you submitted some songs. So thank you very much. I saw your name on the list. You want to hear some Modest Mouse? You want to hear some old school Billy Preston? Love that. So when I talked to Mike Moreau from NASA last week, he made the point how music is very important to his work, both personally and professionally. And I was curious, would you say the same? Does it play a big role in what you do?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, I'm a huge music lover. I grew up in a big music family, and music, it gets us through. It's there for us along the way, and in all these life journeys and the ups and downs. And the team has certainly, we see a lot of concerts together. We make playlists. We had song of the day for big events and activities. So it's so cool that you guys are doing this playlist, and I had such a fun time contributing song requests to it, because it's right up the alley of the OSIRIS-Rex team.
Awesome. Well, I asked Mike this. I'll ask you, what's the best concert you've ever been to?
I could not pick just one.
Oh, give me a little something.
In recent memory, I went and saw Khruangbin at the Aragon Ballroom. They're a very groovy, spacey three-piece band, and they had an amazing set where they were standing on these like UFO ships with spotlights beaming them up and playing amazing music. And it was at the Aragon Ballroom, which is a historic venue in Chicago, and I learned right before I went to that show that I knew my mother had been there hundreds of times, and I knew my grandparents had danced there in the 40s.
Oh, wow.
But I had found out right before I went to the show that also my great-grandmother danced there in the 1920s. So there were, 3 generations of women in my family before me that had been in the same room dancing under these same glistening stars that are, speckled across the ceiling in the ballroom. And it was very special.
I've heard that's an incredible room. I've never been, but I've heard it's just awesome.
You got to go. You got to come to Chicago and see it.
All right. Very good. Well, Coralie, thank you so much for joining us today here on Third Rock. And I promise we're going to try to get your songs on this week. We have your requests on file, so we're going to get to as many as we can, okay?
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, and continued success.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great one.